I did. Have a go or something. Good morning. We're back in session at 9:02 for the Oregon School Board Association's meeting in Selishan, Sunday the 15th, and we will take a roll call.
Jeff Crapper, Chris Cronin, Jackie Crook, Lori Danzuka, Katrina Dowdy, Neelam Gupta, Neelam Gupta, Linda Hamilton, Chris Howitt, Tristan Irvin, Greg Kintz, Christy Cockey,
Here.
Steve Lowell, Alonso Oliveras, Sonia McKenzie, Chrissy Wrights, Clyde Rood, Nicole Schott, Emily Smith, Nancy Thomas, Glenn Wachter, Dawn Watson, Krista Parent, Austin Fulnagi, Anna Ali, Sammy Alidabru,
Present. And we do have a quorum. Well, first of all, welcome, and I had to honor my promise that I'm gonna wear shorts if the Beavers lose, and I don't think there is any debate around who lost and who won, but still, I'm gonna wear it with pride. So, what I want to say today is this is a time of reflection and looking forward. Today, the goal is setting goals for the organization. Let's remember the idea of castles of hope or building stone walls in a Japanese garden, or for us, putting the bricks together to build this institution in a way, or continue building this institution in a way that serves kids, hopefully as soon as possible for their emergencies and urgent needs, but also long term for the future of this generation and generations to come. Really big work ahead of us. You have done a lot yesterday and the day before. And I've heard it again and again from staff, from fellow board members, that we have accomplished in this weekend really good work that's have not been done in a single meeting for a very long time. But more importantly, in the quality of debate that was really mindful and thoughtful. And I want to thank you for putting your efforts, your thoughts, and your ideas into it. And I want to thank you for taking time to connect and rejuvenate over the Saturday afternoon. It was really an important thing that many board members have asked for. It's time for us to connect with each other. Now it's the time for us to reflect and look forward. Governor John Kitzhaber in 2011 came to Corvallis and had a keynote about his vision for students. And what was the numbers? 20, 40, 20. You graduate, everybody 100% graduation rate, and what they do after graduation, certain formula. Um, his vision was for what year? 2025. The senior class of this year is his vision and is the vision of Oregonians based on that direction. I have learned that it's good to take stock from time to time and see where we are and envision where we want to go. And also, I have learned top down visioning is not as effective as bottom up visioning. So, few numbers for you to think about. Some school districts have 100% graduation rate. Some school districts, they don't. We have an average that I can say, but that average does not say the story of the kids. Our mandates right now is different than the mandates of 2011. Our kids depend on us to stay nurtured, to stay healthy, to be successful regardless of their zip code, poverty level, identity, and to receive the health care in many places and communities. School districts are the only healthcare place for them. We have about 20 or a little bit more than 20 board members and liaisons, and you reflect the responsibilities of 1,400 board members rely on you to make sure that they're successful, to make sure that they're making the best decisions for their communities for about 445,000 students. And that's just 445,000 students right now in the classrooms and community colleges are attending and receiving services from ESDs. So, if you go to our governing documents on the OSBA, you will see our goals, vision, mission, call for equity, and that's something we have committed ourselves to. It's time for us to reflect where should we go. Salam has been a phenomenal leader helping us throughout this process. He's been really listening to where we are and where we're going, and he wants us to really help us in this next stage. And he have developed really great session for us to do that visioning. Remember the bricks without mortar? Sometimes I might have that tendency to say, probably I need to change the shape of that brick. It may fit better. Or let's think about micro-managing that brick. How can I change it? This is not the time for that. And maybe putting the pieces together will happen in a different meeting. Will happen after we say this is the North Star. Right now, I want you to take a few steps back, look at the layouts of the ground in front of you, where we are, what would you like to see? Today is not the time for us to put bricks next to each other. It's for us to really draw the picture of where this organization should go. How this organization will go toward it will be the work that we will be engaging in for the next 3 months, year, or potentially years. So with that idea, I really look forward for this discussion. Few reminders, technical reminders, microphones. Remember to speak to the microphone. If you have a microphone in front of you, please hold it and make sure it's on. So to make it on, you need to press and hold. When you have the microphone, if the light is on, it is on. If you push it one press, you're going to mute it. So make sure you don't touch it if it is on. If it is off, press and hold. If you touch it, you're going to mute yourself if it is on. What else? Bathrooms, we know where the bathrooms are. Checkout, you can call them and tell them, can I check out at 12? They're going to tell you, okay. Late checkouts, 1 o'clock, you're going to pay $75 from your pocket. Regular checkouts is 11 o'clock, so if you have not checked out yet, just put these times in your mind. 11 o'clock, regular checkouts, you can call them for 12 free checkouts. We have a really great program ahead of us. Salam, the floor is yours, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. It's so great to see you again, And I want to thank you for the opportunity to work with you today in a very focused session on your strategic planning and your strategic directions. And I just want to say I hope your school year is off to a great start and everybody's happy and everybody's moving in the same direction. And I always feel the need, because I believe it in my heart, to just say thank you to all of you for what you do and the service that you provide to education and the support that you provide to education and educators and students and families and communities throughout the state of Oregon. So, as Sammy said, we're going to look at your strategic plan. And I just want to underscore that I am your facilitator. This is your plan. I don't have any say in it. My purpose is to facilitate your conversation and move you along a series of sort of orchestrated steps to get you to do your best thinking, best collaboration, to either validate, to say yes, this is the right direction, or to create an opportunity for making some adjustments if necessary. So Sammy underscored reflection, and I want to build on that very quickly and say, today, we are not going to actually rewrite your strategic plan. The goal is to look at your strategic plan. And I think strategic plans are very underrated. I think for you in particular, as a statewide board, they make a statement. They make a statement that you are a cohesive board that has clear goals and objectives for the state of Oregon. And I believe that statement resonates with other partners that you work with. And I think it also models for other school boards that many of you are members of the importance of strategic planning, the importance of having clear goals and objectives and working towards those. So I think this is part of your role as a statewide association as well. So we're going to go through everything that's typically on a strategic plan. Your vision statement, your mission statement, your values, we're going to discuss those. Then we'll get into your strategic directions, focus areas, and the goals under each of those focus areas, and spend dedicated time. We have right now 2 hours and 45 minutes, and I have a 10-minute break scheduled, so you can check out then if you want. However, we may have to move through this a little bit quickly than you would like, than I would like, but I think because it's a review and a revision and then making some recommendations for future work, we should be able to get through it quickly. So I want to just beg your forgiveness in advance when I say we got to move on and start looking at the next item. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the focus of the session. Let's see if this works. Well, it is on. Aha. Okay. So just very quickly, before I forget, you may be asking, so why are we doing this today, right? So it's September. Didn't we typically do this at a different time and we do something else in September? So I asked Emily if she would kindly talk about the cycle that you typically go through. I've worked with you in the past relative to this cycle, and there's kind of a method to it. So maybe Emily can talk a little bit about why we're doing this today and what potentially could happen next.
Is this on? Okay. So in the past, it's my understanding that we've spent time at the retreat doing the goal setting work and kind of looking at what we're doing today, the vision, the mission, the values, and the goals. And we have a set of goals that we're going to be going through today that are approved by the board through 2028. But when we have gone through the transition that we've gone through, it felt like it was really important for this board, which is a pretty different makeup than when these goals were originally adopted, to have the opportunity to look and evaluate all of it, our mission, our vision, our values, and our goals, and to have that conversation here as a group to determine if that is still the path that we are on. And if it is, that's great. We can all reaffirm that that is exactly where we want to head, and it will be the guiding principles for us as staff to be able to carry out that work. If we look at it and decide we need to make some changes to these, the world has changed since we approved these, the education landscape has changed, and we want to make some adjustments, we'll be able to get that information from you all, get a lot of input. There'll be a lot of time for you to talk in groups and then share out to the group. And then we will take that as staff and make the necessary changes, come back to the board in January and share those back to you all, and you'll have the opportunity to review and decide if we need to make further edits or if you're ready to adopt them again. And then we will take those, the final goals that have been adopted, and use the next few months in the spring to be able to make adjustments to our staff action plan that will support those goals. And so starting in 25, we would have a new set of staff action plans to be able to support the goals that we determine as a group are really important for us as an organization. So that will be kind of the cycle. It's getting us back on track to the previous cycle. We didn't get to do this last year. So I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you, Salon.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, so I'm going to get started. The focus of the session is to continue to build community. And I know this board and this organization has gone through a lot of challenges and hardships over the last year. But believe it or not, you were building community, because through hardship, we continue to build community. We're going to review the vision, mission, and values, review goals and objectives, develop new goals and objectives if needed. And I'll talk more about that when we get into that section. So in the interest of continuing to build community, I'd like to do an activity, just kind of a warm-up icebreaker activity. Not that you need it, because you all know each other really well, but there may be some new members on the board. So I'd like you to reflect on a memorable experience. The screen is blocking that, but identify a memorable school experience you've had as a child, as a student. Think about what makes that a special and memorable event. What does it really mean to you personally and professionally? How does it affect the way you approach your board work? And then I'm going to ask a couple of you to just share out. So can we do that at your tables? I have another activity that will get us moving around. So at your table, just think about that special experience that you had. It could be a teacher, it could be a student, it could be a community member, a parent, a grandparent, etc. And the goal here is to get you to think about how that experience guides your work today on your local board and this board, essentially. So I've got a few minutes scheduled for that. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'm going to give you 1 minute to reflect and see if you can quickly remember that experience, and then I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to share at your table. Okay. And you're going to see me looking at my phone while I'm doing this. Trust me, I'm not checking emails or soccer scores. I got up super early this morning. I did watch a game, and my team won, and I'm really thrilled. Was wondering what mood I was going to be in if they had lost. So this is just me keeping time. Okay. So think about it and then share at your table.
did that because I remember the smell. Like, I was back. I know we also had the art center, right? That you could do kind of like direct center, but they did this whole, it was still Quaker Oats, little pencil hammer type thing. But it was the paper, it was like sun paper, so it was blue, but then like whatever kind of like the negative was would turn white. Like so, it was like a whole other type of word, but it was really and like you're doing that whole time, just kind of you're connecting all these little things in your brain around science and around just sort of like art pieces, and then you're kind of working alone. I mean, there's just so much to those experiences. Besides, like I had like the picture wasn't the most important thing. Like, I don't know what the picture was. That's so cool.
I'm like, and do it again.
Okay.
All right. I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation. As I begged for your forgiveness earlier, I knew this was going to happen. Not everybody had a chance to talk, I know. And we have small tables and big tables, so forgive me. But for those of you that shared with your group what that memorable experience was and how that affects you, how you show up, and how you do your work locally and on this board, is anyone willing to share? I'd like to have a couple of you share, if you don't mind. Jackie, the mic right here.
I'm going to share Linda's story. And it's an
Guess
interesting.
I should have set some ground rules here. Share your story, not some, but I'm just kidding,
uh,
Jackie.
I asked if she could share hers. I can share mine too. Linda grew up in Louisiana. How do you say it? Louisiana. Anyway, and came to Eugene, and she was in her. She was a sophomore in high school, and she got into her science class, and she looked at her desk, and these letters were carved into the desk, and it was KKK. And she didn't have any idea what that was. And so she called her teacher over and said, what is this? And he tapped her on the shoulder and said, I'll tell you after class what that is. And so after class, he explained what it all meant, and Linda was the only African American in the school at the time, and she said that she learned more from her white teacher than she did from her black teachers. and she was, and because she was really afraid, you know, did went after she found out for a while, and but he assured her that things were okay. But that was her experience in school in Oregon.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Linda, and Jackie for sharing that with us. Can we do one more? Just one more, and then I've got to move us on. You can volunteer someone if you want. Would you use the mic, please?
So in listening to the stories at our table, what really came away is that someone believed in in Chris and Clyde, and it really was impactful in their education and them moving forward. And then Steve shared just that he didn't have a lot of support, and that was a bit of a struggle for him moving around. So having someone that believes in you means a lot.
Well, thank you, and thank you for indulging me here and not being able to actually hear from everyone, because I know there are powerful stories that each and every one of you has. I have my own, but just as a group activity, why is it important that we actually recognize our own story, and why is it important that we bring that into our work? I mean, should we just suppress that and say, no, that's irrelevant? Or is it really an important part of our DNA, our makeup, our development, our growth, and continued growth, if you will? So I just pose that as a just kind of a philosophical question for you to ponder, because it's important for us to bring our kind of story to our work, and it's important to allow others to do the same and to actually celebrate how our stories intersected. We will find a lot of common things in the process. So thank you. I'm going to move us on to the next slide, which is building community. So when you think about community, what does that really mean to you? And I think a lot of what you do here is really building community, and it starts here, and then it spreads into every other community and corner of the state of Oregon. And you do that by modeling what it's like to build community. So what is community? This is Webster's dictionary definition: a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. So this is your community, probably, where you live, who you engage with, who you associate with, who is surrounding you. But then there's a feeling of community, which is, and I have these slides, and I'm sure we'll make them available to you. So if you don't want to take notes, we'll make sure they're available to you. A feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goal. And I think that is really true of the community that you have here. And I came across this definition, and I apologize, I don't know where I got it from, but it's not mine. At least this is how I can cite it. It's not mine. But I will keep looking to see where I can find it, because this reminded me of you, in my opinion, of a statewide board like the OSBA. We build community by serving together, which is essentially what you're doing, getting to know each other, caring enough to listen and learn, and appreciating challenges we each face. Most importantly, by working together to see and overcome those challenges that make us stronger. I believe that is the essence of the work that you do as a statewide board and association. So I want to do an activity that I call Meet to Listen and Learn. We've done this before, and the idea is to continue to build community and get to know each other. So I'm going to ask you to find someone that you don't know, maybe you've never talked to in great detail, somebody you're curious about, somebody you feel like you want to get to know, and ask them the following questions. And this way, I want you to get up and move around the room and find that person. What do they love about their local board service? So now we're building on this personal interest. This is what I love about the work that I do on my board. What are their biggest headaches? And the idea is listening, active listening. What are the challenges and the headaches that they are actually facing? How does this service on this board help them meet their communities and schools' goals and objectives? And finally, how many of you watched the Olympics over the summer? Not many? Okay. Well, no, several actually. So ask them, if they were an Olympian, what would be their sport in the Olympics? What's that? Breakdown. Yeah. Breakdancing. All right. So 4 questions. We're going to spend, so I'm going to give you like 6 minutes to do this. You're going to ask you questions, take turns, and then we're going to ask you, I'll ask a few volunteers to share out. So say get up, look around the room, find the person you want to talk to, and ask them these questions.
Let's go reverse order.
Christy?
Yeah, Neelam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I asked
I was like, wait, can the room hear us?
yeah, he muted us on the soundboard so we can talk to each other now.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I tried
Yeah.
to see if you were in the chat earlier and it said it and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I am in the chat, but we just can't chat with each other.
That's what it said, yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, good. I can't see the questions.
Oh, I can see them.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm in gallery view. Maybe I'm not on the main view. Hang on. Speaker view. Oh, okay. There we are. Okay. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Or should we each question take turns? Each question and take turns? Okay.
Sure.
What do you love about your local board service? And how long have you been on your board?
I joined in June of 2020, so in the very early days of the pandemic. I was appointed and then I ran unopposed the following year. And what I love about my local board service, I really like my board members. I really like an opportunity to influence the direction of public education. I think it's it's a vital service that is available to our kids, and I'm so blown away and impressed each and every day by our kids and their capabilities and their capacity, and just really centering around their experience and their voice is so important.
And I would say I joined the board because I was elected, but we have a progressive board. It's people that have been it's a board of 5, and 2 of them have been administrators. One was the former special ed director in our district for his whole career. The second one was a special ed teacher in our district. The third one was a administrator at the high school down the way. And the fourth one is a parent of two girls that just graduated. So they're very connected to the community. And I joined the board because there was an opening. Because Narce Rodriguez, who is phenomenal on that board, was choosing to step away. And we really tried to have a person of color. Narce and I had someone that was ready to run for it. And at the last minute, she just didn't feel like she could commit the time. And she's a young mom and she wanted to sort of think more about what it would be. So I jumped in with about 5 days to go because we had some Moms of Liberty potential candidates. And so that I joined the board just to fill a space. And what I love about it is that we didn't foresee this, but it allowed us to ask some questions that now has resulted in a new superintendent who is very forward thinking and visionary and ready to make this district kind of her own. And so it was an unforeseen impact that I think we all were able to have in finding someone that just was exactly who I think we need, and that we hadn't had before. I mean, we had a superintendent who was a very good manager, but we really wanted someone who was going to be able to push us and take us forward. So that's what I love about it right now. And I'm still learning a lot about what it is. And we're trying to just build some trust back in the community that I think is happening. So, and I guess that answers kind of the second question. Is the challenge is rebuilding some trust with the community and feeling like we're all in this together. And it does feel like we've had a little bit of a reset. And probably my biggest personal challenge is just it's so difficult to have great conversations because of the structure of the board and public meeting notice and people's time availability, that we feel like we don't have very deep conversations about things. And that's reflected in our survey too from our community, which said we never see this board really talking about things. Of course we think deeply about things, but what you see visually and the time that you actually have to really go deep in a topic is a challenge. How about you?
I think right now, a big headache for us is it's a very time specific one. Where we're at right now is we have one too many elementary schools, and so we're in conversations with our community about which one to close. And that has been really, really contentious, and we're doing that prior to a 2025 bond. It's the third one in a 3-part bond. And so that has been challenging. But I think we can get there. And we spoke to a consultant who's worked on a lot of different
All right.
Portland metro area bonds, and
And I
he
hate
told
to
us,
interrupt
one
these wonderful
example, he told us we
So
got
I'm
some
gonna
polling back
ask-
that we need to make
I'm gonna ask
space
some of you to
between
share out.
whatever our decision
So,
ultimately
looking for
announced decision
volunteers to
is
share out
and
what we learned
the
this
actual
morning.
vote, because people have
I have
memories,
a couple of
and
volunteers.
they might remember some
You
of the
learned.
controversy rather than the
Right here.
ultimate decision. So that's kind of a really big
No one
front
got
of
volunteers?
mind
You can use
headache
the
and challenge, but I think we'll
democratic
get there.
method and start
Yeah.
talking on.
Okay. That definitely is a challenge. It looks like maybe we're back.
All right, let's
Okay.
let's go with our friends that are online.
Oh,
I understand you've engaged in this activity, right?
Maybe he's saying a few more minutes.
we did. I think they might be able to hear us, Neelam. I'm not sure. I know
We
I think
Well, the Henry told me that he was going to mute the soundboard.
he just unmuted, and I think we
Okay.
might. Hi everybody. I think we might be
Okay.
seeing everybody. We only got through the first 2 questions, but Neelam, did you want to share a little bit?
Oh, about what we talked about?
Yeah, I think we're up.
Yeah, we talked about what when we both started on the board, I said I really, really liked my board colleagues. I really enjoy serving with them, and really just am blown away by our amazing students, and just really want to center their experience. Each and every day, they just amaze me. And then we spoke about some of our biggest headaches and challenges. I spoke about we're in the midst of making a decision for our 2025 bond on which of our elementary schools, we have one too many, which one we're going to close. And so that's been pretty controversial. And then Christy, did you want to say?
Well, we just I think we have challenges, but also celebrations. We have a new superintendent, and we're very excited about the direction we're headed, and just communicating and building those relationships with the community is what we're working towards. I don't actually know if we're even on, Neelam, but we could talk on the side.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we're on. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Do you want to continue? I think Salam was saying there are a few more minutes, but
We can hear you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we'll stop. Let's.
You're doing great.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
How this should be done. So
sorry, we can't hear you at all.
Yeah, we can't hear Salam anymore, but we'll stop now.
Okay.
Where's Chris Howitt's timer? We need it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And can we do one in here? Okay. Okay, Emily. You're next.
I had a group with Chris, Howitt, and Linda. And what Chris loves about her local board service is the opportunity to be invited into the classrooms to see what the students are doing. And I said that I was able to go into my kiddos' classroom, which is in the district I'm on the board for, and I just felt like a celebrity. They all loved me. It was awesome. So if you're ever feeling bad about yourself, just go help with third grade math. It was the 2 times tables, which I still remembered, so it was awesome. So our questions 2 and 3 were kind of tied together. One challenge was that a lot of our boards aren't super involved, and they lean heavily on us to basically report whatever OSBA is doing, and they kind of say, "Oh, we don't need to know what OSBA is doing because you'll just tell us during your board report." So it's helpful that we're able to provide that information to them, but it's also kind of a challenge. And we actually did not get to the Olympian, but if napping was a choice, I would choose that.
That were in the conversation, what would be their Olympic sport? Well, they can tell us. Just tell us. What would be your Olympic sport?
I would be track if I was in Olympic running, but I also like when our superintendents come to our board. We have a superintendent come every month from the 16 districts, and that the rural areas are such community.
Yes.
That community.
Yep. Yep.
And that's teachers, community, parents, and all. I like that about them. They're such a community.
Thank you, Linda. Chris?
So my Olympic sport, I did have an opportunity many years ago to go pro in golfing, so I could maybe pick that back up again. Otherwise, I think my Olympic sport would be, no, it's got to be golf, I guess. That's what it would have to be. It's not breakdancing.
Well, at least you consider it other sports. Okay, Nancy, we'll let you wrap up this section and we'll move on to our next activity.
On now? Yay. So I talked with Dawn and I learned a little bit more about Phoenix Talent, and just a wonderful, for her, it was about community. It was that same thing. They're a family, and that's something special. And she was very proud of that. You could see it just radiated on her face, and it came across. And so that is really, really important. The biggest headaches and challenges, quite frankly, are resources. And there is nothing equitable about when you have to take your child 3 hours north 4 hours north, 5 hours north to Portland just to get a diagnosis. There is no equity in that. So it my observation was that the community has failed. We have failed if that is the only way that they can access the resources. I don't know what we can do to help, but that's one of their biggest challenges. So clearly, and then your example, Dawn, was palpable. Her example was they have two students who identify as dyslexic, and they would have to bring their children to Portland for diagnoses. And my response to her was, actually, you have more. But there are parents who have decided that they're not going to admit it because they don't want the pressure of having to admit that they cannot come up with the resources to take that child to Portland. That's a shame. And I feel privileged that I was in a city where I had an institute that was working on ADHD, and I could take my son, and I had the money to say, my son thinks differently. Can you help me understand how and why he thinks? They don't have that. That's deep. That's deep. So it was a really awesome conversation. And then the other question I'm going to go to is, we talked about Olympic sports, and she loves the Paralympic sports. I do too. And I have to agree with Linda, as a prior NCAA Division I track and field hurdler. Clearly, you know what I would be doing in the Olympics. So that's all.
All right. Thank you all, and thank you for those that shared. I love this activity because this is truly an eye-opening and a heart-opening activity in my view. I mean, you learned about Nancy being a hurdler, right? Is that what you call it? Golfer? Runner? I mean, it's really amazing what you learn about your colleagues if you're willing to just get curious about them. The whole purpose of this activity is to get curious about the people we spend time with, the people we work with, the people we want to get to know. And you also begin to appreciate their challenges. You hear about it, but when somebody tells you that we have to drive 4 hours north to get to a specialist, to get to a doctor, to access facilities, and somebody shares with you the challenges their own child has and how where they live is a wonderful place, and it affords them lots of opportunities, but there are challenges associated with that as well. So we learn empathy, and we learn to appreciate and love the people that we work with. So we're going to start our work. And I've done this with you before. We're going to work in small groups, and I would like each group to take 30 seconds to select a facilitator, a recorder, and a reporter. Facilitator keeps the conversation moving, keeps everybody on time, makes sure everybody participates. Recorder, you need a good note taker with really legible handwriting because we want to collect your notes. And the reporter could be one person that speaks for the table, or it could be multiple people that rotate around. So take about 30 seconds, literally or less. Select your facilitator, reporter, and recorder.
Oh, report. I'll report. Like, they all record. I don't mind. With the pen. Yeah. You want us recording on regular paper?
Flip charts, both. But when I ask you to summarize, I want to capture it on here. Thank you for asking. All right. So, okay, you got 5 seconds, and then I'm going to come to each table and ask you to show me by raising your hand who's who. Okay. Facilitators, can I see you? Can I see your hands up, please? Facilitators. So I see two facilitators at that. Oh, co-facilitators. Okay, wonderful. So we have a facilitator, co-facilitator. Who's facilitating at that table, this table? Awesome. You guys are welcome to participate too. You know, I'm not trying to exclude you. And this table, who's facilitating? That's right. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, who's the recorder? And recorders, please take, you can take notes on your notepad, but we want to capture the conversation on flip charts because that's what we're going to take with us. The online folks can they type in the notes and you can capture their comments? Okay. And Nancy asked me a question about both. So mainly, so the little notes are going to be a lot more detailed. However, when we ask you to summarize and share out, it'll be on flip charts, okay? But we want to capture as much as we possibly can because we want to keep track of it and come back and have another conversation relative to this. And who's the reporters? Okay, wonderful. Okay. Reporter, yeah. Okay, ground rules. We're all professionals, we're all adults, and you guys do a really good job with these, and you have your own working agreements that are on your table, which are fairly similar. I think the main thing is we need everybody to participate. Your voice really matters. There are no stupid questions. Always think and rather than but. Let's focus on the problems and not the people. Good listening. I'll let you read them really quickly, and let's have fun with this. I think you guys work really, really hard, and you deserve to enjoy the work that you're doing and that you do together. All right, so I'm going to move us on to your vision, mission, and values. And like I said, we're going to go through these really quickly unless you tell me you need more time to spend on each of these. And I just want to remind you, we're just reviewing today and making some suggestions, making some slight modifications if necessary. However, it's appropriate for you as we look at the vision, mission, values, and the goals and objectives that you have as a board and as organization. It's okay to say, this makes no sense to me. Or it's okay to say, I really don't understand. I need to spend more time on this goal, or I need to spend more time on this phrase. And I'll be honest, I've actually looked at those multiple times, and I found myself asking, what does this really mean? And I've actually talked to Emily about that. But it's your strategic plan. These are your goals and objectives, and you get to determine if they're clear or not. And I'm going to walk you through a process that will get at that, okay? So, vision. This is your vision. Everybody has that memorized, right? Henry, would you move that down, please? Sure, until we have to move it again. All right, so that's your vision, right? Okay, this is your mission. So these are your current vision statement and current mission statement. And I believe you have those, are they at your table, on your table? Okay, I'll keep them up for a few minutes. And these are your values. So your vision, mission, and values. So we're going to take those one at a time. I'm going to ask you a set of questions, and I'm going to time you for how much time you have to do this. So when we think about the vision statement, and I'm purposefully not spending a lot of time defining what vision is. I think you all know that. But if we need to do that, we can, more than happy to do that. But when we think about vision statements, we always want them to be inspiring, memorable, and relatable. So as you look at the OSBA vision statement, is it inspiring? Is it memorable? Is it relatable? Is it relevant, clear, and easily understood by anyone? Think of your elevator speech. If you have to explain it, then it's not easily understood by everyone. And as Emily said, things have changed. The world of education seems to dramatically change from year to year. So is the current vision statement relevant, clear, easily understood, and by anyone? Does the vision statement convey where you are going? Because that's what a vision statement is essentially about. It's telling the world we're going there, right? It's your North Star. So 3 questions. I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to start with. And we'll ask you if there are any suggestions for enhancements. You may look at the vision statement and say, it's perfect, we don't need to do anything, and we move on. We may look at it and say, well, we need to change a word or two, but I want to underscore we're not wordsmithing today. The goal is not to wordsmith. What we want to capture on the flip charts, what question are the questions that you have relative to your vision, mission, and values? Question could be, how can we make it more memorable? So we just want to capture big ideas today rather than get into a process of actually wordsmithing and changing because we just don't have time for it. You'll have an opportunity to do that later. So is the vision statement inspiring, memorable, relevant? I'll let you go through the questions. I'm going to start you right now. I'm actually going to start you with 7 minutes, and then I'll come back to you and see if you need more time. Okay? You want me to go back? Okay. Does everybody have the questions? Okay. Okay, so you want me to go back and, so what would you like me to do? Leave the questions up or put the vision statement up? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. If you want to use technology, go to the OSBA web page, go to board. I think it's under governance, right? It's under about. Okay.
Neelam, can you hear me now?
Vision, mission, values, and goals.
Yes.
Okay. I've got my, yes, thank you. Thank you, Henry. I don't know if Henry can hear us. He's probably going crazy. I have it. I'm trying to call up the separate packet over on I'm on my iPad. So was I not on the video last time I was talking to you? Because I thought I was.
You were
Oh,
on.
good. Oh, good.
Yeah. I
Right.
think, the packet doesn't have the PowerPoint slides. It's just like the one
Oh,
agenda.
okay.
So that's, I dropped in the check and send us the questions because the vision I looked up on the OSBA website and I pasted it in here, but the question.
I know that, I think the first question was it inspiring? Do we feel inspired by it? And I'm looking back at the screen because I know he has it up. Oregon will provide adequate and stable funding for schools, create opportunity. It's funny because our local school, not our school district, but the one next door, I got to put this on so I can see you. Okay. They are my teacher friends are losing their mind because they were just called into a leadership meeting and told that they want them to spend time in the next few months now re-looking at the mission. And there was like this explosion of frustration from teachers who are like, we're trying to teach, we need support, we need time. And the time you're asking us now to spend is like reworking a sentence that none of us feel connected to. Like, of course it makes sense, but not emotionally connected to it.
Right.
And I mean, I would say as a teacher, I always kind of felt that way. Even when I was involved in mission and vision statement process, I understood it, but I never really, once we left that meeting and the room and it was posted on my wall, I don't know. I just was never personally invested in it. So when I look at this one, I think, yes, this makes sense. I don't know that the funding, I like it being first if you want to break it down, but I don't feel like any kind of reaction that makes me feel inspired, I guess. I don't know, I look at it and feel like, yes, this checks the box of what probably any mission statement might be across the nation, but I'm not noticing things too that aren't in there. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I'm not like, oh, wow, yes, we have to do this, but it's the most important thing, without the funding, you can't create opportunity. You can't have student success. You can't, spend more money to create equitable outcomes for people whose starting place is different. And so, I mean, I don't know how I would change it. But I don't go, yes, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna,
Yeah. So, and then I think, let me see what the other question was. I think the fourth question was suggestions. But in between there was, let me text Tristan and see. What if you were changing it, what would you?
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know how I would change it. I guess.
I think sometimes I think of like, we need it, but I almost feel like an actionable item would get me more excited. like,
Mm.
and that's where the goals come in, right? Like underneath the mission and vision, if
Mhm.
we could complete this goal, that would be very exciting. Maybe that's where the
Well,
attachment comes.
yeah, I wonder too, like, some more like kind of what the future state would look like. Like this talks about what we need, right?
Right.
Doesn't really talk about like, kind of the inspiration behind it, like all students will be ready to contribute and, reach their maximum potential or, right? Like it doesn't
Yes.
have any sort of like, what we're hoping to achieve by doing this.
Yeah, I think we just did this journey of a graduate, and which I think a lot of districts now are doing and it speaks to that. So it identifies like the journey of a graduate and the portrait of a graduate, which is what you're saying. It identifies like we want kids who are lifelong curious learners who have
Right.
multiple opportunities for career paths when they leave high school. So that maybe there's a way to
So I'd like you to start capturing a
have
summary
that
for
be
conversation
what
relative
the
to
mission
vision. I'm
is.
hearing some
Like
really
you're saying, a
concise
more
around the room.
visionary
It's also
description
moving
of
on to the mission.
who we want our students to be
Yeah.
instead of what we want to be doing as a body.
Yeah, because that funding, right, will translate then into,
Okay.
our students being able to, achieve great
Yeah.
things, right?
Well, and here's where the second question, so they just switched it, is the vision statement relevant, clear, and easily understood? And does it convey where we're going? So it's the two things you're saying, which is maybe the answer to that is not really. And maybe we could shift it so that it does answer those two questions. But then, we don't want to go down the road of now we're going to rework some vision and
Yeah,
mission.
I
But
think you could add on another statement or two that
that's a
would
good
help.
idea.
Yeah, I think, because
All
vision
right.
statements can be more than one
So,
sentence.
yeah,
True.
you gotta get it on the board.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think,
I think that's a good idea, and have
I
it be.
think,
We're going
take
back.
written notes.
well, there's a message. We're returning
Give us some time,
soon
and
to
again, I
share it out.
apologize. I'm gonna
Okay.
keep us
Okay.
moving
So
because we
he'll
have a
turn
lot
us
of work
back
to do.
down, and then
So we
the whole
start
room will be
moving,
able to hear.
and I'm gonna have us go around the room and very quickly, in 30 seconds or less, give us the
Okay.
gist of your conversation. You're putting notes on the flip chart so people can see them.
We can just say our things and
And
someone
we'll
will
do the same
capture
thing
it.
with mission and
It
values
might be
and
similar to what
vision.
someone else said.
So, who would like to go first? Everybody is very quickly capturing notes. Katrina.
It felt fitting that the first question was about inspiring because the word adequate has never been inspiring to me a day in my life. So we'll just start there. It felt like it was discussing more of the mechanisms for success versus our actual success. So funding is a mechanism, and I don't think that needs to be a place of the vision.
Okay.
And so most of our discussion was relating to what our actual vision is, and it would be relating more to excellence versus adequacy.
Wonderful. So just in the interest of time, if somebody, touches on some things that you discussed at your table, just acknowledge that and add. Let's have it be additive. So who would like to go next? Yes, please.
Our group talked about it. It is relevant. It is clear, conveys where we're going, but we're wondering why it's tied to something that is out of our control, state education funding.
Okay, good question. Anything else to add? I should have asked this table. Anything else to add at that table? Okay, can we keep working around the room since they're writing? You guys have yours nicely scribed here. Let you go next, please.
So we agreed that the funding shouldn't be at the forefront of the statement, and we wanted it to be more focused on students, and also that we're here to school boards and center students.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add? We're good. Chris, back to you. Mike?
Good morning. Chris Howard, Gresham Barlow Board of Education, OSBA. We are here to talk to you about a strong voice for public education. We're going to succeed in that by making sure we're all encompassing, that we are having it memorable and inspired, and it's a sound bite that we can talk about and add to. What we currently have as our statement is too wordy. And it also has too many roadblocks where you look at it and say, but what if we don't do that? But what if we aren't successful here? But what if we can't do that? We are still a strong voice for public education.
Okay. So what I'm sensing from the people in the room, and I'm going to invite the folks online, if very quickly you can just share your conversation, but I'm sensing that this is an area where you want to spend some time rewriting perhaps the vision. Okay, great. Our friends online?
Yeah, I think people have said a lot of what we talked about. I think, our feeling too was that, it doesn't really talk about the future state where we want to go. It talks about funding, but there's so much else like about where we want our students to be.
Okay. Thank you. What I'm sensing from you is that your vision statement actually has many of the elements that are typically in a mission statement. So when we look at mission statements, these are the questions that I would ask. Does the mission statement describe what you do and who you serve? Many of you touched on that already. Is the mission statement actionable and measurable? Is it clear about what you do and how you're going to measure your success? Is the mission statement clear and easily understood by anyone? I think the same question we should ask of all of the things that we do. Is it clear and easily understood by anyone? And then we're inviting you to make some suggestions for enhancements. So I want to give you, I'm going to start with 5 minutes to have a similar conversation like you did with vision that gives us direction in terms of where we go with this. All right? So it's 10:10. I'll check in with you at 10:15.
Okay. Henry is on fire.
I know.
Henry's on top of it.
Yep.
I've never seen someone have to do this, so I know we both appreciate it. Thank you, Henry.
There you are.
Yeah.
So I think it's what you spoke to, Neelam. I think it's improving student success. It's maybe just defining what that looks like in all districts. And I don't think that's part of the accountability conversation that's happening. What are we all supposed to be making sure kids experience, and how are we all going to agree across the state that that's how we're going to show, we're going to show that we're doing that. But I'm thinking about when people say again, it's dedicated to improving student success. Maybe it's dedicated to, and to your point, I mean, advocacy for funding is only going to be effective when we can explain to legislators, like, funding for what, to what purpose. And right now it feels like districts are all over the place on what that could look like, or they're kind of stuck on like funding for CTE, but it's missing that bigger vision of the kind of person you want to be developing. And so
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just an added definition of what we mean by student success. And public service to service to public school boards. What does that mean? Beyond PACE, I don't know. If I wasn't in this group, I would not know what OSBA, I've accessed some trainings, but I can't speak to what it is. And so maybe it's a dual mission. To be effective, I had asked not our superintendent, but a different superintendent. I had said, what is your take on OSBA? And this superintendent said, to be honest, people don't take that group seriously. And now this was an administrator, right? And I think in terms of being able to effectively advocate, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not in the mission. Maybe it's the action plan. I don't know.
I think you know, this, it's also missing that, you know, OSBA is essentially an organization that supports school boards, right? And also does advocacy on behalf of school boards for educational issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
it's being like that important function that OSBA, you know, in looking at its member services is trying to improve.
And maybe it's, I mean, the OSBA advocacy, I guess through LPC, but really, are we supposed to be empowering boards to do the advocacy, right? Like, or is, and I'm still not sure, is OSBA, like someone mentioned here, our board thinks that's up to OSBA to do the advocacy piece. Now I'm saying to my board, no, we need to be engaged, which is what OSBA has been asking. Like, we need board members to get engaged. But I think maybe there's a misunderstanding of the roles of OSBA doing that for us on behalf of us, or should OSBA's mission be to really empower each person on a board to be able to be, you know, effective? And
Yeah.
maybe it's both, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like, you know, OSBA is in service of boards to achieve like improving student success and education equity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you don't, like on the board itself, I'm even thinking of our region. If you're not at this meeting, beyond this meeting, I don't know. I mean, I'm still not sure how we're effectively helping that happen unless boards are coming organically to take trainings or accessing, like we're offering this, you can come and hear about the legislative roadshow, right? Like, we're providing some pieces, but then do we have a responsibility at some point? It's kind of like the same discussion in our district about we're putting everything on the website, and so parents should just read it. And we're like, no, we need to go beyond just putting it on the website. You know, anyway, okay. Coming back, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, so we like the vision statement better than the mission statement. We said it captures school board focus. We felt yes, it's actionable and measurable for the most part. Our only question was, is education equity clearly understood by all, and might there be a better way to say what we're trying to do there?
Great. Anything else to add at this table? We're good. Thank you very much. Who would like to go next?
I'll go. Or we'll go. Our comments were doesn't seem measurable. We don't see that in there, but it does seem actionable. And then we're talking about what are the definitions, who's defining student success, education equity, service, and advocacy. Because we feel like it's different at the OSB level versus our local school board level. So we're just trying to keep that in mind as we're talking through this.
Yeah. That's really a great point, because those are the very same terms that get used locally. So it's an excellent question in terms of the distinction between you as a board and local boards. Wonderful. Next. We have two tables. Chris, you're up.
All right, we're next. This one was a little bit easier for us to work with. Where am I at here? So mission. We tweaked it a little bit. We changed the order a little bit, took out a couple of words, tried to make it actionable. So OSBA's mission is to support public school boards first in Oregon here to improve student success and educational equity. So first, if we don't have support for public school boards, these things won't happen. So first priority, public school boards.
Thank you very much. So you've zeroed in on who do we serve, right? I mean, you're leading for school boards. Ultimately, students are the ones you're trying to serve, but who is really your audience or your client, so to speak? Okay, Katrina, thank you.
Yeah, we definitely agree with folks that this one felt more specific, which was helpful. It was more specific to boards and more specific to the work we do. The advocacy, leadership, and service is the modalities we use. We don't teach and fund. We use teaching and funding as tools. We felt like there was a lack of a word we specifically would like to see somehow in here is empowerment, because it seems like what we're really focusing on is empowering school boards to lead this change. So maybe instead of support, we use the word empower.
All right. But you really focused on why we do this work. Why are we a statewide board? Who are we supposed to kind of support and provide leadership for? Excellent. All right, we got everybody, right? Thank you. I'm going to move us on to the next one, which is your values. Take a look at your values right there. Equity, lifelong learning, fostering safety. Oh, online. Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot about you.
No, that's all right. Henry, I want to give a shout out to Henry, who has been adjusting and turning down this volume so Neelan and I can have these conversations. It's been amazing. But we echoed echoed the comment of Katrina about empowering boards, and what does that mean, and is there an expectation from boards that OSBA is doing more advocacy? What is that expectation from OSBA board for boards to be a partner in that? We've heard a lot of that from Efren and trying to build that up. The second piece was measuring student success. We're with the accountability discussion. I'm not sure districts are in agreement of what student success looks like. And to Neelam's earlier point about, are we looking at success in metrics, or are we defining success in kids who are graduating with with options for school, with curiosity about learning? What are we actually measuring to identify student success?
Thank you very much. I'm going to move us on to our values. You got 5 wonderful values over there. And what I want to say, we're also, I believe, capturing all of this discussion, right, Henry? It's being recorded so we can actually go back and listen to it and tease out those points. So I just want to say that because we are going through this fairly quickly. And what you have to say matters. All right, so values. What are values? Values set an organization apart from the competition by clarifying its identity and serving as a rallying point for employees, and can shape the work environment and the mission and the business decisions your leadership teams make. Values are integral to any organizations, just like they are to a family or any kind of relationship we engage in. So there are 2 types of values that I want to highlight. You have core values, which are non-negotiable values that are deeply ingrained principles that guide all of an organization's actions. They are the cultural cornerstones that can never be compromised. Those are your core values. When we say these are my core values, that means these are non-negotiable. I'm not going to compromise on them whatsoever. There's another type of values that organizations often have, but they cause us to pause and say, well, we don't have those values, but you can aspire to have them. So we have core values and aspirational values. So you may look at your values and you may say, well, we're not there yet. But I think it's important to list them so the world sees them and the constituents that you serve see them and say, I want to be a part of that organization, because they know they're not there, but they're aspiring to be there. So we have core values and aspirational values. And the aspirational values that an organization needs to succeed in the future that currently lacks or not fully developed. So the question for you, as you look at those 5 values that you have as a board and as an association, do these values clearly describe who you are as a statewide board and association, and define your beliefs, principles, and people? That's the question, one question. And it could be a quick yes or no answer, or it could be a quick yes, but let's expand on this, or let's add another value perhaps. All right, I'm going to give you literally 3 minutes to examine this question. 3 minutes, and then I'm going to ask you to report out. Do you want me to go back to the values? Okay. Everybody has the question down? Here are your values.
All right, I think Christy,
Yeah, we're back down.
Yeah.
I think they're fine. I mean, I don't know how people define things like commitment
mhm,
and integrity, but I mean, I think we all, I
yeah.
don't know what, are there any values you think are
Mm.
missing from that list?
I know that they're like lists of values. I can't think. I mean, I would be curious what OSB A staff thinks, like if there are other values that they would want
Yeah.
to have included in here. I mean, it seems to me, especially given the experience of this past year, we're not living up to these values yet. Some of these in particular.
Like the safety, do you think, and integrity maybe, or
Yeah. Yeah, no,
and
I think,
equity?
I mean, yeah, I think those, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for staff, it's been a terrible time for them.
Yeah, I was just
And
learning a
for
little bit
board
more.
members too, yeah.
Well, and I was just learning a little bit. Each time I come to these meetings, I get a little more context of like
Mm-hmm.
why we're where we are. I mean, for just dropping in and not knowing. So I think sometimes
Did you start January?
Yeah, so I started
Okay.
right after the really hard meeting. And
Yeah.
so, but I didn't really understand, or I had a misunderstanding of the pieces that happened to get us where we were in general, just
Right.
the leadership structure and the caucuses. And
Yeah.
so I
There were
was
a lot of misunderstandings.
well, and I think, yeah, so I could tell from the conversation yesterday too about the caucus development. Like, I'm like, I think I am missing some pieces of like background that would be helping to give me some context of some of what is happening here and just who I don't know. I learned more each time about,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like people are, I don't know where values come into play, because it seems like when that kind of turmoil was happening, is that a place where
It
you
was,
pause and say, hey, let's revisit the values, are
yeah,
we living these, right? But
could have
maybe
been.
that hasn't been defined,
Okay,
what
so
those
I'm gonna
values
bring you
look like
back
in
to the question
practice.
because I want you to look at that when I ask you to report out.
But it would
All
be
right.
interesting to hear people, and especially
Give you
people like
30
I haven't
seconds
been
to
in
wrap up
a
your
long time,
conversation, and then we're gonna hear out from
speak,
everyone.
and like you said, to the staff, but speak to the values themselves and say, this was an example of where I do feel like we were meeting and where we weren't, so people kind of can get a baseline of, are we all working from the same expectation? And
Yeah, I think Henry's bringing us back.
okay.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to report out. And just for the purpose of clarification, the graphics are mine, they're not yours. So if you love them, great. If you don't like them, my apologies. I'm just trying to kind of make these slides a bit more interesting and lively. That doesn't always work. All right, who wants to go first? Do the values clearly describe who you are as a statewide board and association and define your beliefs, principles, and people? Who would like to go first? Okay, Nancy?
I'm taking a stab at this one because this one didn't quite resonate with me in a positive manner. If I can just say that. So when we wrote the 5 words: commitment, equity, fostering safety, integrity, lifelong learning. As the daughter of a U.S. Marine, commitment and integrity are what you do every day. That is not a goal. That is not aspirational. That's what you're supposed to be. Period. End of story. And if we're not that, then what are we? So I think that's kind of misplaced. And then equity, define that. I'm struggling with the use of that word. I'm struggling with what it means. And if you all can help me understand that, I'm happy to learn. But I'm struggling with that one. Lifelong learning, we have that in our district vision. How is that your vision? I'm confused. So overall, what I what we said was, we need to look at this again.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Who would like to go next?
So,
Sammy?
disclosure before Emily shares her statement on this. I volunteered her because she's always brief and to the point. So our report is
These values do not bring us joy.
We second that.
And we have a second. I think you have succinct clarity here that I've not seen before, right? Okay. So we have you support the sentiments that it's being expressed on this side of the room. Anything you want to add?
Just kind of along the same lines as Nancy. What does that mean? We don't feel like they're aspirational, and should advocacy be a value?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're asking those questions, essentially the people that created these values, imagine what your colleagues and partners and other board members are saying as well. Last table?
Yeah, so we had some of the same kind of conversations, and we came up with a couple of different things, but mostly the lifelong learning, who does that apply to? Safety, who does that apply to? It was crossing the bounds between students, staff, board. It did not bring me joy. And so what we came up with, a little bit of a, something else to kind of work with, was equity, which could be defined, excellence, innovation. I want to latch onto that word, innovation, partnership, and then integrity fell in there again, but we'll have to work on that. So that was kind of where we were having a good conversation about it. It wasn't telling us what values to who.
Yeah. Well, I really want to commend you. You're doing some serious reflection and deep thinking on what these things are and what they mean. And I think you're also looking at the context that you are in today and the context that education is in today. And these things may have been necessary 4 years ago, but have we completely fulfilled those, and we need to project something different. All right, so I'm going to suggest that we take a 10-minute break. I have 10:30. May I give you till 10:40, please? And then we'll jump into your goals and objectives and see if we can work through those as quickly. Can we come back to them afterwards, please? Please remind me if I forget. And thanks for reminding me, Henry. So if you need to check out, I think this is a good time to do that. And we'll see you back here at 10:40.
I think we did. I think because it's yeah, we did. That was part of our conversation. That is so much work for. I mean, it's good. We worked on it, and now I'm like, I'm working on the board again. I don't. You too.
Not going to be on that committee again. Okay, I'm going to pick up.
testing.
Check, check.
Show you what we did with it. Yeah, yeah. Right, there you go, the results, the results. Yeah, under my tea bag. Oh.
heard them say they aren't doing any more late checkouts. Is that right? Okay. Like if people are coming in on a Sunday night for like I can get if this was like a Friday, but it did seem funny. So I came back because I heard her say that and I came back like Sammy, you might just want to make an announcement. Like if people are assuming that they can call right now and get that.
All right, if I may bring us back together. So I need your help with something, and I know that not everybody is in the room. but I'll give him about 30 seconds here to walk in or so. So we're going to look at your strategic focus areas and goals. And one of them is the OSBA business plan. And I understand yesterday you looked at this goal, which is implement a business strategic plan with the outcome of reducing the organization's reliance on investment principal by at least 50% for the next 5 years. I believe your strategy was to raise membership dues. I understand that you took a vote yesterday and you were supportive of that. So the question for you, I had these questions down. You know, what is it needed to ensure successful rollout? How do you support the board and OSBA, the organization and staff to ensure success? What have we not considered or anticipated as we move into implementation? I talked to Emily, and Emily said that you guys had extensive conversations around this goal. So the question for you is, do you want to spend time on these, or do you think you've had adequate conversation relative to the themes embedded in these questions? Nancy?
I would like to offer that we don't talk about this one because we had great discussion and we have a plan. We have a plan for the rural districts, for the urban districts. We got that.
Okay.
This is a strategy that we're going to use. Moving on. Let's move on.
All right. We have a okay. All right, we have a ditto. So do I have consensus? Can I see a thumbs up that says yes? All right, thank you very much. This actually saves us quite a bit of time. So we're not going to share out. Thank you. So the next goal was under this strategic focus area is create and or revise professional development programs, training programs, and services for school boards that continue to align with equitable research-based best practices. You have a lot there. Hang on to that thought and maybe put it on the flip chart. All right, so here are the questions. And the purpose of these questions is to really take you back to your initial conversation when you came up with this goal and to really answer that question. What is that, right? Or why do we have it? So the first question are, what are the specific knowledge and skills school boards need for success? Because I'm assuming that's what that professional development is about. So what are the knowledge and skills required for success? What is currently offered that helps meet those skills? Because again, this is your professional development program. What is currently offered that meets those skills? And third, what could be modified or added to achieve the desired results? And as I read that goal, your desired result is equitable research best practices. Tristan?
Well, if we want to finish the questions, I just have a clarifying question around this goal. So I don't
Okay.
know if there's.
All right, thank you. And the last question, since you're doing this for school boards, how will we know school boards have successfully implemented this training? And I will confess, I may have completely misunderstood the question. I'm sorry, misunderstood the goal or misinterpreted or represented that, at least in my mind. But those are questions that came to mind for me. So Tristan, please.
So, and this is, everybody can feel free to help me out on this. I feel like after the Coraggio group and they kind of went through, the board development team really pulled this one apart and did a lot of work around this goal. And so I just want to know if we are looking at this right now. We've seen what's going to happen at the conference coming up in November. We know all these newer things. And so I'm wondering, like, we're starting from this point versus when this goal was created for the strategic plan, because again, I feel like a lot of this work has already been done by Kristen and her team. And so just sort of wondering where our launching point for this goal is, or we're thinking lofty and visionary, like ideally, what else could we add versus what is missing? Because I think we filled in a lot of these pieces.
Okay. Sammy, do you have a?
Thanks. I have a few thoughts maybe to answer that question or to deliberate on that question. A lot of how you accomplish this goal is under the direction and leadership of staff. And the board's role is to ensure how are we doing there? Is there any gaps in what we're doing? Can we advocate for more resources for it? And what kind of relationships and pieces we can connect together. So just to talk about the environment for the last 4 or 5 years, lots of new board members, lots of need for school board development. We had a scholarship program that we utilized in Corvallis for 7 years back to back. It's not competitive. Well, is it competitive? You apply, right? And some years it was competitive, and many years like we just apply and we get it every time. And with the financial status of the organization, its ability to provide those scholarships, its ability to provide those trainings, there is still some gaps. Some rural areas are fortunate to have it now with caucus funding. Some rural areas still are not able to get that training. Also, school boards, as they do board evaluation, and use the research-based practices, which is they evaluate themselves, they evaluate where training is needed, and then they see students' outcomes based on it. Not every single board is doing it. Also, legislature. Some legislatures thought we need to make a law about this and how we should navigate those conversations around mandatory training. It is work in progress, but also I want to caution us, this work in progress have so many elements and pieces that are operational. And what we need to do is to be the best cheerleaders about continuing that work and evaluating how much allocation of funding that's necessary for it, whether from within the institution or from our advocacy as ambassadors with the legislature.
Okay.
So I think maybe to answer where we are, it's work in progress. We're not there yet,
Right.
but we're definitely in the right direction.
So, okay, Nancy, and then I'm going to put you on the spot if I may.
Well, I'm hoping if
Sorry, Craig.
y- you might be able to answer my question. Before I tackle this, I would want to know what you all are doing operationally. And I think we all need a chance to look at what you guys are doing operationally, and your answers to all of those questions would then guide how I then move to review that. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm not ready to review that until I know what you guys are doing operationally.
Thank you. Craig?
Yeah, just kind of want to echo that. I think this is the part where at most the collaborative piece comes in, where we all need to be sitting at the table if we're going to be talking about this, but more so, yeah, I would agree with Sammy that at this point, when we start getting into those specifics, we're the cheerleaders for y'all sitting at that table.
All right. Thank you all. This is great conversation. And what I'm hearing you say is that this is an area of great importance to you. It's an area that you trust staff to lead and facilitate and provide information. I do hear some questions about, some clarity that may be needed relative to some of the statements in the goal. I hear some requests for an update on where we are from Kristen and team, so you understand how to approach it. I know, Chris, you have a comment, but if I might just get you thinking about this, because I'm going to come back to you, because there may be an opportunity to do something here, but it all depends on Kristen, no pressure. So what I was going to ask you to consider as I go to Chris, and I'll come back to you, what would be helpful to you here? If we were to have a conversation about this today, what would be at least one question that is on your mind, top of mind, that would be helpful for us to discuss? Okay, so you've got 30 seconds to think about that. Chris.
So one of the things, and I'm using this from personal experience with my own board, if we're relying on conferences and summer board conference in order to provide some of this training, there's a huge swath of board members that are never going to those. I know. And so I'm trying to figure out how to get that. And I used to lean away from doing a mandatory training through legislation. I'm leaning harder towards that being the baseline, that has to have the teeth in it. So along with that, with OSBA being able to help doing a simplified board evaluation, really where are you at? Scholarships for training, help make us better ambassadors for the training as well. And I miss Leadership Oregon, I'll just say it. So but mostly it's how do we reach the folks that are not going to come to a convention? And that's the hard part. If there's any answers to that, I'd love to hear 'em.
Great discussion. I want to give our folks an opportunity that are online an opportunity to weigh in on this, and then that will give you another 30-second, Kristen. You're still
I'll
forming.
echo Chris's comment, but I want to take it a step further, wondering for board members, I know on my own board that maybe have not ever done a training or have maybe done one years ago. Again, how do we know with the board members that have done the training how that has helped them moving forward? And for board members that don't do those trainings, are they getting internal training in their onboarding? And how does each board's onboarding align with what OSBA is doing? And I know that's work that the staff has probably already looked into, but I would like to see the information there if possible.
If I can add on, I also, really appreciate this conversation and just wanted to say, I think some of it is about communication, because Kristen and her team are such a wealth of information and knowledge and best practices. And I know I was so appreciative of when Kristen came to our board retreat 2 years ago, and we learned so much in that short period of time and have, implemented practices that have been truly effective to our board.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Great, rich discussion that's providing a lot of clarity, I think, for everyone in terms of the interest. So, Kristen, what would be helpful for us to talk about, like, for 2 minutes as a group?
Thank you for this discussion. I love talking about board development and what we're doing. And so I love that this is a goal that you have and agree that a lot of this is operational. We love to share the information about what we're doing and what we're working toward. So just to really hit what are we doing, especially with that big goal, we are consistently moving toward working on relying on research-based best practices. And everything that we do and come out to your districts and do is reliant on what the research shows, how you can best impact students, the role of the board and how it best impacts students. And we rely on a specific model to do that. That is what our training is based on. That is what our board self-evaluations are based on. So that feeds into what are the specific knowledge and skills that you need. Some of the things that we offer, I think most boards in the state know that we offer basic roles and responsibilities, governance essentials. What folks don't know that we offer are strategic planning services and superintendent evaluations and board self-evaluations. And then we customize anything that you need that is within the board's role. And one of the things that we've thought about doing is really marketing those services so that gets more out there. And so we've been talking as a team, like, what's a good timeline for building a plan to really market those services? Because I don't think everybody knows that we offer as much as we do. The big question is that I know that my team would love for you all to talk about is that support piece, which is how can you all go back to your districts and outreach to your districts in your region about like getting more usage, because we know that we've got districts that we've never worked with, and we would love to work with every district in the state. And we are also thinking about the ways that we can reduce barriers to access. Like one of the things that came out of the Coraggio work was, could we have regional representatives around the state that we would just use when needed, but who could reduce travel costs and who could represent, like, we live in your area, and could provide some of those basic trainings that wouldn't cost as much because we're not charging as much in travel costs. And so these are the kinds of things that we're thinking about that came out of Coraggio. But you as ambassadors to your regions and the rest of the state, how can you help get some more support for the kinds of things that we do? And if that means that we communicate to you better about the kinds of offerings that we have, we are more than happy to do that, so then you can be ambassadors to the rest of the state as to what board development has to offer.
Thank you very much. So I think that's a really important question in terms of what role can you play as ambassadors relative to all of the services that OSBA offers and provides, and potentially what other services you would like to see provided based on your individual board needs and experience. If I may suggest, I don't think you have time to delve into this conversation today. Can we table this one and come back to it later, either at a board meeting where Kristen and team can provide a presentation on all of the wonderful things that they do and maybe identify some questions for you to grapple with, and perhaps come back to it later because it sounds like it's important to you as a strategic plan goal to come back to it later and refine it and be clear about what it is. Because when I'm listening to the comments and the conversation, it sounds like there is commitment for it, there is interest, and you see the value, but it's not clear what some of these things mean. And that's when I said earlier, I said I had questions about what this meant. So is that okay? All right, thank you. And there will be an opportunity to get into the onboarding and PD, and I think we can have a part of that conversation there perhaps. So your next strategic focus and goals are member services and relationships. The goal is to implement an ongoing engagement process to share/hear from members, and that includes superintendents, about the following: the benefits and value of the services of OSBA/PACE, and issues of urban-rural divide. This is verbatim what you have under that strategic focus area and as a goal, okay? So the question is, what is the current engagement process with members and superintendents? What is working well? What can be improved or enhanced? And the third, what can be enhanced to bridge the urban-rural divide? So I'm essentially unpacking your goal and asking you to discuss these components of your goal. And it's an opportunity, again, to say it's not clear, or it's an opportunity to say, let's define what these concepts actually mean. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes at your table to discuss. I'll give you more time if you need to. And then we want to report out in the same fashion, relative to clarity, what's missing, what could be enhanced, what questions do you have, so we can determine what to do with this strategic focus and goal. Okay, I'm going to keep it up on the screen. So 5 minutes to discuss, and I'll come back to you for report out.
I think for me, I would need more history on, again, I'm learning like when the Person of Color Caucus started and then why the Rural Caucus started. And I don't know enough. I mean, I can imagine maybe where some of the discussion is around the divide. And I've kind of started to I was at Nicole's table because I went to the LGBTQ table, and then the Rural Caucus. I went to the caucuses for my hot topics at the summer conference.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so I was able to sort of connect with Nicole there. And I didn't really get a chance to talk, but I got a sense at the table, some of the things that they were dealing with, which it just sounded like, I mean, there's multiple things, but the one thing they were mentioning is just when these bigger districts like ours get funding, they are in a situation where they maybe have to use the funding because the one building they have for school is crumbling. So they're in these kind of situations where, and there was a beginning of a conversation, but I just don't know enough history to know what that is and then how to work on defining it.
Yeah. I mean, I work at Oregon Health Authority, and I work with healthcare providers across the state. So I'm, I have that perspective and on the urban-rural divide, and it's very real. And there's some, like you said, there's some very unique challenges that rural districts face simply because of their rurality.
Yeah.
Their geographic inequities that are, but just
That's
because
the other
you
thing
don't have the tax base to pass bonds or levies, right? That other districts like our district does. And we've so far been really successful at doing that, and that's made a huge difference for us.
Well, and it just might, like the education piece there, I think the other thing Nicole was talking about, like when they had to restructure for reading instruction, they don't have someone that's going to drive 2 hours to take a job. So
Sure.
now I have never thought of that, much as I've learned a lot. I mean, the more you get perspective and information, so maybe a piece of it is just having some kind of education piece where we are defining some real true, like you're saying, that maybe if you're not experiencing that, you wouldn't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then without knowing that, of course, then when you're talking about funding, you can't appreciate, I mean, it really would change the whole argument. I mean, and the caucus discussion is a good one for me as well for that same reason. Like I learned enough pieces yesterday where I think my vote would maybe be different now, but it's like a process of sort of going through and understanding what's where. So maybe the same for the rural piece, but I don't know how much of the rural caucus, like, I think Nicole was saying too, the challenge of finding time to meet and have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But at the conventions, I'm maybe guessing that a lot of people that don't come are the rural schools because they maybe can't afford it. I'm making an assumption there, but I don't know if.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a matter of doing some sort of I don't know. What do you
I
think?
think, I mean, I'm not sure. I wonder, like, if, I know, for example, for the last, like this past summer conference, I wasn't able to go. We had one board member go because he was presenting. He presented on AI, I think with Tiger Twallaton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you went to that.
I didn't go to that session, but I was at summer conference. But yeah, it was not. I mean, it was
less attended than past years, and even like the annual convention, I was the only board member, and last summer conference, I was the only board member. So I mean,
our board hasn't sent any. Our board hasn't gone for years because they all went years ago, but then they just stopped going to any of them. So when, yeah,
we
so
actually NSBA, almost our entire board was supposed to go to NSBA, the NSBA annual conference, and our superintendent went to. One of the board members had to drop out. I think we find value in, there's incredible value for us in belonging to OSBA for, the policy work, pace, the ability to learn and network. I think particularly when you're a newer board member, it's really, really valuable. And so I just wonder, I know that, people are busy and sometimes the timing doesn't always work out. But, another thing we've also done, we've invited our students to come to, our student school board reps to come to the annual convention, the legislative roadshow. I'm pretty sure, I don't think this last year, but the year before, we had one of our students come to the legislative roadshow too.
We did that. We did well at ours too. Well, not the roadshow, but I guess we have a separate. Becky Timchuk kind of organizes a separate dinner for our legislators, and we have students all come and kind of tell their story. So, but I haven't been to a legislative roadshow. But is that kind of a round table where you do have opportunity to discuss, or is it?
Yeah, it's like, it's based on your region. For us, it's Clackamas County. And it's hosted at the ESD, and you have ESD staff as well as members and superintendents from other districts. And, you get to hear what the legislative priorities are. There's usually some discussion points that the OSBA board kind of directs, and it's a good opportunity to provide your board's perspective as well as hear what other boards are thinking on an issue. I think for me, the location's about 25 minutes away, so it's not so far that I can't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think majority of our board tends to go, along with the superintendent's always there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't, and this is a goal of the OSBA to just bring awareness to the divide, or I'm
Well, I think the urban rural divide, like, because isn't there like I think there's I don't know if it's actually happened, but there was talk about another association forming, and that
oh
I'm not sure if
oh
that
I feel like I might have heard that.
yeah, yeah. And I don't know if it's necessarily because of the urban rural divide. There are probably other issues as well. Probably
I
the urban rural divide is part of it.
I feel like what I heard was it was more political. I could be wrong, that there was like that's what I think I heard, is that the idea that's what I heard, but I don't know if I didn't realize it was maybe a separate entity, or if it's like a charter school led something. But I did get the impression it was more along maybe political lines, which it shouldn't be, right, if we can find common ground for kids. But that's tricky. It's like if you say it's for rural, and then some rural districts, what I've heard a couple of people say is, hey, just because we're rural doesn't mean we're not progressive here. Like there's people like, but there's an assumption sometimes. But I think what's happening is sometimes people are assuming that the rural urban now is Democrat Republican divide. And I don't think, I mean, there's probably trends there, but that's a tricky one too, because I think there's some of that at play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they back?
I've dropped the volume down for both of you. Is it?
I mean, we're still
No,
going.
not yet. Not
Okay.
yet. Yeah. And then I have to leave around 11:30.
Oh yeah, no worries. Oh, it's
And
been
you'll
good.
be alone?
It's been good. No, that's
Yeah.
okay. I was planning on not really. I thought, well, I probably won't be participating. I'll just listening and taking notes. But no, I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And you know, if you'd like,
I'm going to give you a minute to
history
summarize and wrap up your conversation, and we're going to report out.
about the color caucus, I'm happy to provide more information.
I would love it. I mean,
yeah.
That's a caucus I haven't been to yet. But like I said, when we were in League of Oregon Cities, that's when the Person of Color Caucus started there. And our two caucuses, the Person of Color and Women's Caucus, after a year, they kind of said they really wanted to start we started to partner. We weren't really partnering, even though we both supported each other, but we decided to sort of actively start to plan and align some of the ways that we were doing engagement, and that work was just starting. But that was a process as we went. We just were like, for the kind of, it depended on who was running the caucus, and then how much, again, people could be coming to the meetings. And then within that, could we join forces and accomplish more? But that was, I don't know where they are now. Okay,
we're back. Start with our friends online, and then we'll give
do you want to go,
Neelam, to report out.
Why don't you go, Christy?
Okay. Thank you. We talked a little bit about, for newer members, maybe gaining more history around what that conversation has been around the rural and urban divide. I will say that in the summer conference, when we went to Hot Topics, I was able to go to the caucus Hot Topic tables, and the conversation at the rural table there, led by Nicole, was really around some things that I had not heard. I was telling Neelam just things about the initiative to have reading instruction, and then how difficult it would be for a rural district to shift staff and then look to see if they can hire someone, and things like that maybe we might take for granted in our district, that we maybe aren't always thinking about when we're talking about common policy goals. So just maybe an education piece. And I don't know, Neelam, am I missing? There's something else we talked about there, but.
Yeah. We also spoke about how, the value for OSBA and PACE services is so, I mean, for our district, we really, really, rely so much on the policies and PACE and, just, yeah, so much value. I think the conferences are particularly valuable on that 2-year cycle when new board members come in. So that was some of the highlights of our conversation.
All right, thank you very much. So just remind you, build on the conversation. If something has been said, just acknowledge it and build on it. Yes, please, sir.
So we took a little bit different tack on this, and this, in order for us to engage with our regions well, we need to be well trained, and I think that's an area that, with a lot of the turmoil that's went on, has been lacking. And so, a couple of suggestions that came up is potentially an OSBA board member and a staff member assigned as mentors to new board members to really help them understand what their role is on this board. And so, yeah, without knowledge, your support is going to be lacking. And then we also discussed maybe some mandatory training for newly elected board members, whether that's legislated or a matter of individual board's policy.
Thank you.
I'm just
Who would
gonna
like
add,
to go next?
just going to add to
Oh,
that
yes,
real quick.
please.
For summer board, it's mostly for new board members, but what if we split it? It was mentioned that we used to have some online training for conferences and stuff like that. What if we brought back an online version for existing board members during summer, and then we had in person for new board members?
Thank you. Great suggestions. Tristan, would you like to go next?
I'm just to say the first thing, then I'll hand it over to our actual reporter. One thing that just sort of came up for us is, and I know we're not rewriting goals, but we just sort of fuzzed up against the word divide. And I feel like there are challenges with urban and rural districts, but I think codifying that there's a divide when we have plenty of other divisive things happening is just something that we don't need in a goal. Like we've now made it a goal that there's a divide. So just sort of thinking about that word and sort of how we can sort of reimagine that. And then
we had some wonderings around what the current outreach practices are, and as board members, how can we partner in that work? And then our last wondering was around the Rural Caucus and how is the Rural Caucus partnering in that work?
All right, thank you. Shall we just keep moving around the room? Katrina?
Sure. I think we can echo a lot of what was said before. As far as training specifically, one of the things we were highlighting is even though there's base level training for school board members as a whole, and it's one time a year, and we know we can make that more accessible, we were also recognizing that many of us entered under a different executive director who maybe wasn't as thorough in what onboarding looked like. And so I was 4 years into this work before I knew you could email your whole district and there was a platform to do that. And so I think that a lot of us could just have a catch up opportunity when we're starting afresh collectively. The other thing we were talking about is we fully agree with not continuing to use divisive language and creating divides where they are not necessary, because it's more we're pulling on each other's strengths and needs and meeting those needs of our community. The other thing is we were thinking that there's a lot of visual education that could happen where we really look at what the representation truly is and where it is lacking and where it is strong. Because if we actually look around this room, caucus or not, there is an incredible representation of our rural communities. And so if we keep perpetuating the idea that our rural communities are left behind and not focused, we're not actually even giving credit to the people that are in this room and the makeup of this board. And so I think we noticed yesterday that during the Pride presentation, people really resonated with the map and like recognizing our communities. And I think we could do some more visual education of our districts of really where we are represented and that there is so much strength representing rural communities.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, our final group.
We talked about like sharing success of board development in order to build engagement, like stories where board development has been able to make a positive change in a board, particularly like one that was struggling. We talked about strengthening partnerships and relationships between regions. So like engaging people that can then help you engage their own boards, since we can't, especially since we represent such large areas and so many boards, like there's no way that we could attend all the board meetings. So, and then we talked about doing like regional roundtables or regional trainings in order to engage different areas that maybe might not be able to go to the Portland conventions. Oh, and the $500 stipend that OSBA board members have to do legislative engagement. Any sort of engagement, like I said. Just kidding.
All right. Thank you. I love the depth of questions, the depth of reflection and observations, and they're incredibly substantive that will help guide moving this work forward and determining what we do with it next. I'm going to keep us plugging away because I know many of you want to leave here right at 12. The next one, I think, builds on some of the conversations that you had already, and it's relative to your onboarding program. Many of you talked about building capacity in school boards and individual members, new members, helping understand their role, understand the role of the OSBA statewide board, et cetera. So this is, you know, it's couched, so to speak, within the context of onboarding of new OSBA board members and officers. Some of the officers, I would assume, have been serving longer than new board members, but there is an interest in making sure that everybody knows what they have to know to be successful and to contribute positively to the work that they're signing on for. So 3 questions. How does the onboarding program prepare you for the variety of issues and topics the board regularly engages with? And again, I've heard some comments from all tables relative to what's needed and some great ideas in terms of how to diversify that training and build capacity in board members. So the question is, how does the current onboarding program prepare you for a variety of issues and topics that you engage with? How can the training be enhanced to support all members and the varying needs of each member? I think the rural urban discussion that we just had fits into that, but there may be some individual needs relative to new members, longer serving members, et cetera. We'll let you kind of think about that on your own. And the last question was really about the frequency and timing of the trainings. Is that adequate? You know, are you getting enough? Are they being timed appropriately? We've heard some suggestions relative to what you could do in the summer for long-term, you know, serving members and fresh new serving members, et cetera. So I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to grapple with those questions, and then we'll report out. Okay.
Are you taking off, Neelam?
I can participate in this discussion, then I'll go.
Okay.
Yeah. So, did you participate in the onboarding training that happened?
No, I mean, you know what my onboarding is, you mean for the OSBA?
Yeah, the OSBA one. Because they did one for the first time. They heard all the comments last year that we made about, you know, how there was no onboarding for board members.
Yeah.
And much to Emily's credit, she got right on it and did an onboarding. I think the only disadvantage was a Friday evening, and I had plans that Friday evening, so I couldn't participate. And I'm sure if I requested the training stuff, they would provide it, or the recording, and I could watch it. But
well, and see, now that you're saying that, I don't think I did. And this is what's a little unclear. Like, I was onboarded as a school board with a really weak onboarding from our own district, you know,
right, yes.
and which we were talking about. But then I just accidentally even knew as a school board member before I got onto OSBA that there was all of this training I could do. So I started kind of just randomly doing some of those trainings they sent out. There was not like, hey, you're a new school board member. Well, I think there is, though, to your point, but I didn't.
There is like, so what they normally do, and I missed this too because I happened to be appointed, and then the following year I couldn't make when they did an onboarding session, I think, an online onboarding session for new board members.
Yeah.
2 years ago, or you know, whenever that cycle is, right? Like they would do
Okay.
it then this July for new board members. But for OSBA board members, they never had a onboarding program until recently,
Okay.
until they did it, I think, I want to say like sometime in the winter, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I love the idea of and by then I had been on now the OSBA, so I don't think I don't know. I'm not sure. The fact I don't even know is a problem, but I think, you know, the idea of a mentor, someone in the directorship to
Mhm.
be able to reach
Yeah.
out to people to
Great
say,
idea.
where are you with this and how much, but again, like, what have they learned?
Mhm.
Because even a lot of the OSBA training is about the same things that you would need to have as a school board member that you may or may not have had
Well,
complete training in, or
yeah,
is it different?
some of it's different
Yeah.
because, you know, I mean, it relates to your roles and responsibilities on the board, right? Like I never got like even you know, information packet or anything when I first, you know, when I became the
Well,
color
same.
committee president. Yeah, so I mean, you know, I think Emily, you know, again, much to her credit, you know, heard that feedback and they did put together a training, but I think there, you know, might be space to create like a web page with materials and
Mhm.
recordings,
Yeah.
right? So that people who aren't, you know, not everyone's going to be able to make everything. I think also, you know, one of the things I like to do with some of our board committees, I like to do a 6-month check-in with people, you know, just to say, how's it going? You know, what's your experience been like? What have you enjoyed? What are some
Yeah.
areas of improvement? Do you have any questions? So that's another thing I like to do. And then I think also involve, I love the idea of a mentorship program. I think also the extent to which you can involve board members in the onboarding too
Mhm.
might be helpful. I mean, I recognize that's another ask, but you know, so I mean, I think, you know, like some check-in trainings as well,
Yeah.
you know, would be helpful too. Like maybe at the 1 year mark, maybe at the 6-month mark. I'm not sure what the demarcation points are, but yeah.
Well, and then what are at the conferences, the gold levels and the levels that they give to just all board? What is that? Like, is that just a
Yeah.
way to encourage people to go through a series of trainings with the goal? I mean, and that's
Yes.
another question I have is like, it does probably seem so hit or miss who might do those or might not. And would it be something to consider where is it appropriate? I think Chris said this, to not mandate, I don't want to use the word mandate, but say we would like every board member in the state to have access to watch and discuss this training so that
Mhm.
at least, you know, somewhere, maybe and you can't make a board do that, but maybe if there was just a couple key ones that you asked boards to consider doing throughout the year, what would those even be? And would you get more consistent buy-in? I mean, one of them could even be, what is the OSBA? Like, I wouldn't know if I was not on this board. When it says email your region, and then 5 minutes later,
All right, I'm
I
going to
asked
give you
Becky,
30 seconds to wrap
who
up, and then we're
do I
going to
email?
report
And she
out,
said,
and
well,
we
you
have
guys
one
need
more
to figure
goal
that
to
out. And
recruit.
then Tristan sent an email that came to all of us, and I texted her and I said, are you emailing everybody? She's like, I don't know. It just said email my region. So I clicked the region. Like, we don't,
Yeah,
you know,
right. There
I mean,
needs to
like,
be, yeah,
some
right.
sort of like, what is OSBA? Who are your regional reps? What do they do? What should you do? Just a general, what is this? And what if
Okay.
every board member at least had a
So
baseline understanding of
let's do our
OSBA?
share out.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm going to go to our
Okay,
friends
bye-bye.
online and ask them to share their thoughts with us, and then we'll come back to everybody that's in the room.
Okay, thank you. Well, we were just talking about the access to trainings, and again, I think Chris might have spoken to this idea of, would there be some sort of possibility of OSBA as a body, you know, asking every school board across the state to at least commit to accessing maybe one or two training pieces. And one might just be, I was saying, what is OSBA? Who are your regional directors? How does this thing work? And how do you as a school board interface? Almost building, I guess if we're going to talk about the foundation block, would an appropriate goal for this body to be considering every school board member in the state to have a starting point of understanding of the organization itself, whether you're coming to the conferences, accessing the website. And Neelam brought up the point too of being able to have like a landing space on the website for these types of more broad training videos and check-ins where people could go and access on their own time. But just some wonderings around that. Neelam, jump in if I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Leadership Institute trainings are available online. I was thinking, I just wanted to give so much credit to Emily for doing the onboarding training that happened for the first time, at least since I've been on the board. I think it was this winter. And yeah, that's what I was thinking, you could have a landing page that had that information and then some regular check-ins. We also talked about like a potential mentorship program for new board members too, were some of our ideas.
Great ideas. Thank you. And I just want to kind of remind us, this is about onboarding on the OSBA board, recognizing that there's a process locally, but this could help inform that process as well. If you set up a mentorship program, it may inspire local boards to do the same. All right, so thank you for our online presenters. Can we go around the room? Who would like to go first? Nancy, please, thank you.
So we had two things I'm going to do. We had the suggestion of a mandatory information and checklist for training for new people. We give us a checklist. I'm on the board now. Give me a checklist. Tell me what I have to do, where I have to be, and all the things. Having said that, this is a personal and public apology to Linnell because bless her heart, she did not understand who Nancy was. She didn't know what Nancy's day job was, and she didn't understand how to connect with me. And Nancy, therefore, didn't know how to connect with her. Whose fault is that? It's mine, but we also have to make sure that she understands who we are. And who are we? We're working executives and working people. That has changed. The idea that we have all this time, it doesn't exist anymore. So how do we continue to be efficient? How do we continue to engage and collaborate with the responsibility that we have to take care of our families in the various situations? That is really, really important. It killed me to not be at the meeting where we voted on Emily. Killed me. But there was no way I was going to be able to do that at 10 o'clock in the morning. It was not going to happen. So we just have to think about that. This is our reality, right? What is our responsibility for you to know, understand us? And then what is the OSBA responsibility when we come onto the board? Maybe it could be as simple as us saying, hey, tell us about your life. How many kids you got? Do you have any in the district? Do you have a heavy job? Are you retired? What is it that you do and how can we reach out to you? That is something that I think we can collaborate on. And then that will resolve issues like day, evening, weekend, all the things. And how do you do this? And how do you get the work done? How do we work when it's convenient for us when you have this group of individuals? This is their day job. That's very difficult to navigate if you don't collaborate together. And so, Linnell, thank you for trying. Thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate it. And Emily, thank you for being patient with one Nancy Thomas. That's not an easy thing to do. So that's what we wanted to say.
We had a variety of different experiences as new and returning board members. So our suggestions were consistency in training. What does that look like for each buddy coming on? And then again, adding on to the mentor buddy system. On having an annual what's important now conversation regarding what our districts are asking for and new hot button issues, challenges, and then just kind of like a clear training cadence throughout the process. So we're not having the miscommunications and kind of like we're not sure what we're supposed to do and when we're supposed to do it.
Thank you. Who's you-
Yeah.
Chris?
So we kind of went a little bit down the wrong rabbit hole, so we're bringing it back just a little bit. But we did well. We had a good time. So one of the things though that we did talk about is on being on the OSBA board. Um, Historically, to get on the OSBA board, you already had done some training before you got here, and as things have changed, times have changed, we've had board members who've gotten on this board who are brand new in their local board. They are coming in with ideas and thoughts and things they want to do. So even making sure that we do that very thorough basic understanding of board service is very important. For me, I would love to have a reference someplace that says, hey, you know what? 10 years ago, we did it this way, and guess what? We're doing it different now. I know to get a hold of Linnell. I know to get a hold of Emily. They'll tell me who else to get a hold of. Um, and but also for every new board member, then board member to this board, there should be a little sheet that says, who is OSBA? What have you just signed up your life for to understand, so that whatever misinformation you got before you got here, we're now going to set you straight. Do you still want to stay? Of course they do. And Nancy, I absolutely love your conversation. We are not all necessarily retired, stay at home, flexible work hours folks, but we still want to contribute and be here. And just having a little bit more conversation about how do we make this work for everyone and utilize that online capability in a way that does engage people. I love being here in person right now, seeing and talking to folks, but sometimes I can't take, this has been a big imposition for me to take 3 days off of my business. It's going to be catch up next week. So I think frequency, not assuming just because we've been here that we don't need that update as well. And that will make us better ambassadors back to our local region and districts, explaining what is OSBA and helping to get rid of some of those miscommunications. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay, our last table over here.
We talked about a lot of the same things. And then just like our experiences with onboarding were wildly different between even just the three of us. So streamlining that and making it a standard onboarding procedure with the training that Emily talked about. And then working on a mentorship program, possibly led by the executive committee, to really mentor new board members and make sure that they have someone that they can go to with questions.
Thank you very much. Great conversation. Lots of great ideas and suggestions to make things work better for everyone. And I'm sure the staff appreciates understanding how you're impacted by the opportunities that they provide you. And I think it's an opportunity to make sure that your services are met. So I love this clarity and this communication that's happening and rich discussion and dialogue. We have one last goal to work on. And I think it's been sort of a hallmark goal for the OSBA, for the Oregon School Boards Association, for decades. And I think that says it all. So I know this is something you've spent a lot of time on. And, you know, I can give you my opinion about some of the language that you use, but I'll leave that to you. So we have 4 questions, really. I mean, the last one is, what suggestions do you have? And again, it sounds like we're going to come back to this conversation later and look at all of those goals and objectives. And you can do that then. But I think it would be interesting to have at least an initial conversation about this goal, which is advocate for cost containment measures for stable, adequate, and equitable funding consistent with Oregon's quality education model. So question number 1, is the goal clear? You can put that on your chart, of course. Is the goal clear and understood internally and externally? So internally, I'm referring to Emily and the staff that work on this goal every day to make sure that they deliver on it. Externally, are you on the same page with the other 197 school boards and different advocacy organizations that work on this as well? What's working well? What needs to change? Are there some partners and coalitions that you need to consider and pursue to help you achieve this goal. What is the measure of success? What is the measure of success? Is it getting incremental gains every biennium, or is it getting the full shebang at once? So what suggestions do you have for enhancement? We have some things we need to take care of before you head out. So I'm going to give you 7 minutes to work on this. Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
it's working. I'm gonna throw a little bit of wrench in this one and say that I feel like this one might be that we actually need to adjust the strategic focus and the goal, because when we're looking at our legislative advocacy work, one, advocacy isn't in here, and I think like funding is incredibly important. Also, what's happening on the policy front is equally important when we think about local decision making being important, and also the impact on students across the state. And so the number of policies coming out that Spencer and his team get to work on that then get rolled out to you all, that then you have to go in and change within your districts. This just doesn't encapsulate the total breadth of the work that is really important.
So knowing that there's a lot of other pieces that need to be in front of you as you work on this goal, would it just be helpful to have a conversation about the clarity of the goal? Let's say that. Is it clear? Is it
Point of clarification. I
Yes.
hate to use that.
No, it's okay.
We don't control this. And the quicker we understand that we don't control this. This funding, this is what this organization is doing through its advocacy work and working and the road shows and the getting us together to teach us how to deal with the people, the legislators. We don't control this. And so I really have a problem with having a serious discussion about trying to fix this, because this is not ours to fix. It's what we want, it's what we desire, but it is not ours to fix.
So you're saying this is an outcome, right? It is. I mean, the outcome is adequate and stable funding, and you have a role to play, and perhaps maybe the focus should be on what you're going to do to help achieve that goal, right? So it is definitely a desired outcome. And the question that I would have for you, should it be at least not as it's stated, should that be articulated as a separate goal? Stable and adequate funding. Should it be stated as a goal? Should it be part of your vision statement, your mission statement, part of your values? This is something that I think this organization has worked on for a long, long, long time. And it's been really a focal point for you. And I would say it's probably driven by leadership as well. But you have new leadership now, and not at the just organizational level, but within the board leadership here. And it's worth having a conversation about, you know, should we focus on the inputs or should we focus on the outputs here? Right? Should we focus on what we can do, because we can't control the outcome. Somebody else gets to decide that. But we can do some things to help achieve that goal. So what is it that you do? What is it that you've been doing for a long time? I heard the word advocacy, right? Should advocacy be the goal? Should partnerships, collaboration, whatever? I'm just kind of giving you suggestions here to think about. Katrina.
The other thing I think that we had really initial gut reactions to is words matter and the order of words matter. And the fact that the priority here is saying cost containment and then way down at the bottom is equitable funding, I think speaks to I don't think we want to lead that way truly. And so I think that when we're looking at a goal, that could be one of the ways we achieve a goal is supporting for cost containment if at all possible, but that doesn't seem to be a goal. And so I just highlight that's what it felt like we were having a lot of gut reaction to.
Sammy?
Just to the last point, within the context that we may need to do lots of reframing here, a historical content that we are moving forward from, I believe, since 2018, pre 2018, probably somewhere around 2016 and before, cost containment was meaning our only hope to adequately understand how much money are needed for schools and provide schools more money is to contain the cost of other institutions across the state of Oregon in order to fund it. It's the narrative of the pie is limited. Where we are right now, the education community continue to support the Student Success Act and making sure we adequately understand how much money are needed and we fund our needs there. So I believe we departed from leading with cost containment into leading with adequate, accurate, and adequate funding of education. So just a historical context that probably we need to move on from.
Yeah. I personally appreciate the clarification because I asked Emily actually when we were preparing for this meeting, what does cost containment measure of stable and adequate funding means, because I found that to be in contradiction of your advocacy for adequate and stable funding. So I appreciate the clarification, but again, different contexts, different leaders, different participants. Let's hear from everybody. Let's just generate some your general reaction to what we're talking about and this goal staying as a goal or being modified or clarified, enhanced, etc. Chris?
What Sammy said was correct. And it's, as I read this now, again, with a fresh eye, the QEM has often felt like, look, we're trying to do everything we can. And for years, they were supposed to do a report about why they couldn't even meet the QEM. And they didn't even bother to do the report because it wasn't important to them, but it was a way to dangle in front of us. It was a way to say, see, we're doing something about it without having to do a darn thing. And putting the onus on us, I love what Nancy said. It's not ours to do. Ours is to advocate for stable funding adequate for what we know we need to do for students. And that's not it. That's not it. They've continued to put the QEM out there without even asking us, what do we think it should have even in it? And then they say, well, by the way, we have this thing, but we're not actually going to do anything with it. Why even have it? And why should that be a goal of ours? If they're not going to do their part, then we don't work with that. We work with adequate, stable funding, and here's why. And that's what we need to do with it. Because historically, it's been smoke and mirrors ever since they put it in.
Thank you. Others that want to add to the conversation we're having? We'd love to hear from your guys' table. Okay.
I keep coming back to the word articulate, which is, in my mind, it's a little bit different than advocate, because we want to be able to clearly explain our individual and as a district, the stories of why we need to have adequate and equitable funding. So advocacy is is definitely the lead word, but I think articulate so that it is understood by those who need to understand.
All right. So I am sensing, does somebody else want to say anything? Lori?
Full disclosure, I sit on the Quality Education Commission. So be nice. Just kidding. We have taking steps to improve our report for this year, and we did consult with OSBA, with COSA. We did consult with all of our partners on the language within that report because we wanted to make sure our report is going to legislators. In prior years, we've submitted reports that were for educators. So we had to really be mindful of our language, of who our audience was, so they could clearly understand what we were talking about. So I encourage you to look at the report that was made this year, and we're also in steps of talking about kind of a one pager that will help boards kind of understand, and that would be an education speak. So I just want to share that.
Thank you very much. I think this is worth revisiting. I love the question, and that is really one of the most important questions relative to any strategic plan is why put a goal in there that you don't control, you don't necessarily own, and you can't hold yourself accountable for. But there's something that you can do towards achieving that goal, so let's be pragmatic and practical about what that is. So, yes, Nancy.
Sorry, you tell me where this goes. There were 4 votes yesterday on the vote that we took with regard to the newest caucus. I want to make sure that the representation behind those 4 votes of no, it wasn't that they don't support the organization. They are concerned about us evaluating whether this particular structure is the way it should move forward. And I completely support that. So what I'm asking is, I want to make sure that we formally identify that that should be a goal. It should be including in our strategic plan so that we can determine and move forward. If it means that we have to say, put a pause, a temporary pause on any other caucus, whatever. But I want to make sure that when Chris steps in and says, hey, this is where we're going, that she understands that that is also a part of that. I just want to know, you tell me where to put it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't want to forget about our partners that are online. Invite you to weigh in on this discussion. Are you still there, Henry?
I do just want to add one other thing, not to belabor it, but by having this as a goal and being something that we can't control, our districts, because we're out there talking about it and leading with it, think that we can control it. And so then when we come back and we share all the things that we did for you, and they said, well, we can't fund our programs and we're cutting staff, and your goal was to make sure that we got equitable and adequate funding, then we aren't doing our job. And so I think that has really been a disservice to us and the value that we bring to all of the communities by implying that we do have control over it.
Jackie?
Yes. One of the things that if districts don't believe we're helping them, what I always point out to my districts is that the OSBA lobbyists protect us from legislation. That is just as important as advocating for funding or advocating for our particular actions that we want the legislature to do. But there are far more poor, bad, awful bills that OSBA keeps us from.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
absolutely need
That's
to
a
point
great
that
point,
out.
and perhaps that could be expanded. So you're talking about good education policy, including staple funding. But forgive me, I don't mean to share my opinions on that. So just can't help myself sometimes. All right, so this really concludes our work, and I just want to say that I am incredibly impressed with the level of wisdom, substance, care, thought, and commitment that you all have to this work. And I just love the substantive nature of the discussion, and it actually helped inform, in my opinion, where you go next with this. And in my view, I think you need to spend a little bit of time revisiting all of those parts of your strategic plan, because words matter, and it's obvious that they matter to you, and you want the world to know what you stand for and what you're working towards. So I'm going to try and close my segment with the way I like to close these meetings when I facilitate them. Excuse me. Before I turn it over to Sammy, but I'm going to turn it over to Chris first to do this, and then I'll close my part and then turn it over to Sammy. Chris?
Thank you, Salam. So I'm incredibly uplifted and encouraged and energized by this entire weekend. We had robust, excellent discussion. But I'll tell you what I'm most excited about, I think, is that we have an incredible new executive director. The board, thank you, board, for your hard work and for your approval of the contract with Emily. You did sign it, right? Okay, okay. So I just, this is on behalf of the board. This is to our executive director. We all look so forward to working with you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you to the staff also for your work this weekend, all of you. But anyway, we're just looking forward to the next year. Can't wait. It's going to be great, and we appreciate you so much. So thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations again. And congratulations to you. I mean, it's absolutely nothing more important than having the right leaders in the right place to help move the organization forward. So I like to end my meetings when I facilitate with a thought and a feeling. And I don't know, some of you have experienced that. So two words that capture the work that we've done here today. And if you want to reflect on the last 3 days, I think that would be wonderful too. So a thought and a feeling, 2 words. Give you 10 seconds to come up with a thought and a feeling. And it's okay if somebody else has the same thought and a feeling. That's even further validation. Thought and a feeling as you reflect on today and even the last couple of days. Thought and a feeling. Want to go first? All right.
Fresh and optimistic.
Who wants to go next?
My thought is 2025. My feeling is looking up.
Thank you. Who wants to go next? Can you use the microphone on your table, please?
Thought is fresh start, one word. Feeling is empowered.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Confident, forward thinking.
Okay, where was that? I'm sorry. Clyde, thank you. Confident and forward thinking. Craig?
Moving forward.
Moving forward. 2 words. That's right. Moving and forward. Let's just go around the room. Nancy? And I'm going to ask you guys, by the way, to also weigh in on this.
Collaboration and inspiring.
Collaboration and inspired. Okay, who wants to go? Trina?
I'll say united and hopeful.
United and hopeful.
Path forward and energized.
Path forward and energized.
Productive and encouraged.
Productive and encouraged. Just going to leave this with you. You don't have to go next unless you want to. Okay, what else? Let's go. Chris.
A little bit scared, but tremendous affection for this group.
Awesome. Okay.
Productive and hopeful.
Productive and hopeful. Teamwork and togetherness. Would you make sure that mic is on, please? Teamwork and togetherness.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
Accomplishment and hopeful.
Okay.
I'm going to second what Haley said.
Accomplishment and hopeful.
Successfully forward.
I'm gonna go with clarifying and Emily Smith joy.
All right.
Forward and proud.
Forward and proud.
I'm thinking of a lot of hard work, but excitement to get at it.
All right. You must be the journalist in the group. You put that so succinctly. All right. Let's finish up the groups. Who hasn't gone yet?
Positive and encouraged.
Positive and encouraged. Did everybody go here? Jackie? There's-
Thankful. and encouraged.
Wonderful. So, Emily?
I'm grateful and optimistic, and I am just going to take a couple more words and say thank you so much to the staff.
Henry, what about you back there? So did we get everybody in the room? Okay, online, and then I'll turn it over to Sammy. So is there anyone still online? Okay. Christy? Thought and a feeling? Okay. Tranquil and joy, perhaps. Yes. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. I have to tell you, I'm just blown away. This is amazing, and I'm just really optimistic and hopeful and looking forward to the work that you're going to do as a board. Sammy, it's all yours.
Give it up to Salam. Salam is so humble. He brings the best out of any group he's in, and I'm really appreciative of you spending this weekend with us and today really helping us reflect. My thoughts and my feeling can be in one word, DITTO, ditto to everything you have said. You really captured how I'm feeling. In the words of my favorite singer, Frank Sinatra, I think my feeling also is encompassed by a sentence, and maybe some of us think of it differently. So I want to tell you the state of mind when I think about his words, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come is not only a word of optimism, it's a mandate for us. If it's not, we will make it so. And today and this weekend, I can see the best is yet to come because we will make it so. With that, really thank you for your time here. From fist to five, fist, yeah, and five, awesome. How was this weekend? Don't look around. Go. Fist to five. Awesome. This location from fist to five, how was it? I love it. I see 1-4 and the rest is 5, so the average is 4.555. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you. And I look forward to see you at the convention and all around the regions. So thank you, staff. Thank you, Emily. And again, congratulations and not welcome aboard. Thank you for getting us aboard to be doing the good work. And I really look forward for the rest. Seeing there's no further business, the board meeting is adjourned.